Hello guys, welcome to my session for today. And today we are going to learn about the Kubernetes RBAC. RBAC is not is a role-based access control. And before we deep dive into role-based access control, I'm just going to explain about the authentication and authorization. Okay, let me explain about what is authentication and authorization. So before that, no, please do subscribe my videos. I have posted a lot of Kubernetes advanced concepts and mid-level concepts also, and I'm planning to post more videos. So please do subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up if you like the video. And yeah, let's deep dive into the session. Today we are going to learn about the Kubernetes RBAC. RBAC is nothing but how do you log into the Kubernetes and what are all the resources you can access into a Kubernetes cluster. I assume that you have a basic knowledge of Kubernetes and the configurations and the pods and the deployments. If you're not sure about that one, please visit my channel for some of the basic stuffs like kubectl and accessing the creating the cluster resources. And yeah, so assuming that you have a basic concept of a Kubernetes, so what is authentication? So I have a Kubernetes cluster. I need to log in, right? I need to log in and then do some of the tasks inside the Kubernetes. So I am just going to explain in a real world scenario, like what is an authentication? Imagine you have got an appointment in a new company. So you just you attend the interview and then clear the interview and then go into a new company, and the company will be issuing the ID card for you, right? So this is the authentication. ID card is the authentication, meaning that you already attended the interview and they have given you the offer letter. So they will just issue the ID card, right? So, okay, you are the guy. Okay, authenticate, right? So the first day when you come to the office, you have the ID card, okay? So you tap the access card in the security and you enter the company. But inside the company, there will be a lot of departments or a lot of labs will be there, right? You don't have access to all the labs, right? For instance, you are in a computer you are working in a computer lab department. You need to have access for a computer labs, cafeteria, or any other research and development labs, right? So for instance, you are having you want to access for the three labs. You do go for the authorization. Okay, that is the authorization. So for instance, I have the ID card, so I have the access to I want access to the three labs only, right? Here where the authorization comes into picture. Okay, so authorization is nothing but it will give access to the three labs, no? So it doesn't mean that once you have the ID card you have access to all the workspaces, right? So I need to authorize the user, right? So it's like an authorization, okay? Access. So authentication is like an ID card issued, and authorization is like using that ID card. Where do you have access to all the departments, right? So that is the authorization. Okay, guys. Coming into a Kubernetes perspective, right? So we have a Kubernetes cluster. So see my mouse pointer over here. So I am this guy. So I need Kubernetes login. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll be creating the admin will be creating a Kubernetes user for you, or if there is an SSO with the external integration, it's fine. For now, I'm just assuming that we are going to create a new user over here. Okay, so I need to give you access, like so. I'll just give you the authentication access only. So this guy, if you see the pointer number one, this guy will have authentication. Okay, he can able to log in, but you don't have access to all the Kubernetes resources, right? So I have mentioned like no access to Kubernetes objects. I'll show in the demo. So this this girl, right? So this girl will be having a authentication and authorization. For instance, this girl is working in a project name like the project one, right? So I need to give access for this girl for this project namespace. So I what I'll do is, right, I'll create a role. I'll create a role. Okay. So roles are basically the namespace scope. For instance, there will be like a lot of people accessing a different projects, right? So the each imagine each project's best practices in Kubernetes is like each project should be in a specific namespace. Okay, so this girl should be access. This girl working on project one should be access only the project one namespace. She should not access the project two namespace, right? So that is the concept over here. So in that case, right, we have a Kubernetes role. Role is nothing but the namespace authorization we are going to provide for this girl, right? So that is the thing, is the role is there. Okay, so after we create the role, we create the role with create, delete, what are all the permissions we can give for the deployment or pods, right? We can give in that role. Okay, and then what we do is assume this role. Okay, bind this role using a role binding. I will bind this user to this role and then to this role binding. I'll just show you in the demo. Okay, so in short, right, role binding is mainly used for the namespace scope. Okay, namespace scope. So let us go into a demo for doing this one. So I mentioned over the steps over here, like what are all the steps for before I want to show this demo, right? I need to create a user. Okay, so I am just going to create a user. I'll just show you the steps. I'll share all these steps in the document over here, and then you can make a note of that one. Okay. So before I'll just show my cluster where it is. Currently I have a AWS environment. I have a kind cluster. I mean, a single EC2 instance was created in the AWS environment. It's basically kind cluster. Okay, kind Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So this is my setup over here, and let us deep into a session. Okay. So right now, my task is I want to show you the demo, right? So I want to create a Kubernetes user. Okay. So before I create a Kubernetes user, right, I need to grab the I have created a Kubernetes cluster, right? Each cluster will be having a I mean the certificate authority. Okay, certificate, and then the key file. Okay, these two files are normally created when you create a cluster. For instance, see, this is my AWS console. Okay, if I put a Docker PS, I have a kind cluster already created. This is a Kubernetes cluster. Okay, it will be running like a Docker container. Okay, for creating a client tester, I will post in a separate video here. For now, you just don't worry about how to create this client cluster, but just see the demo over here. Okay, so when I create this cluster, right, cluster will be automatically creating a certificate file. Cert Cluster will be automatically creating a certificate authority file and certificate authority key file. So what is the certificate authority file? So I create a Kubernetes cluster, right? So the Kubernetes, it's like a authority. Okay, if I create a Kubernetes cluster, I will create a kind Kubernetes cluster, and kind will be generating a authority files. For instance, we need to use this authority key file and the certificate file to stamp or allow a new user or create a new user. Okay, that is the main aim of this uh, CA and the CA key file. Okay, so these are, I am just going to copy. It will be, since it's inside the container, I'm just going to copy using this command docker copy. Okay, and then this is the Docker container name. Okay, so in this case, Docker PS, and then this is the Docker container name, right? So I'll just put this command over here. See, successfully copied. Okay, then I'll copy the key file. Okay, so I need a key file and a certificate file. See, these are all the steps. These are all the steps for creating a user. Okay, so okay, I just given the wrong name over here. I just copy over here. So I'm just copying the key file. Don't worry about how this key file is being generated for now. But when you create a kind cluster, all these will be copied. Okay. So if you see here, I am having I'll just remove this. It's not needed for now. Okay. So CA cert and then the CA key. Okay. If you just open the CA cert and the CA key, it's just a key file over here. Okay. And the certificate file over here. Okay. Certificate file. Don't worry about these things right now. It's just imagine, no, this is just a root certificates for your cluster. Why I am downloading this? I need to create a user, right? In order to create a user, I need to have this certificate key and file. Okay, Okay, right now we can deep dive into. So our aim is to, I need to create this user or this user, and then I'll show the demo how we can do a role binding. Okay. So first, before creating a user, right, I need to create the key for that user. Okay. So for instance, I'm going to create a cube user named cube user. Okay. So I'll just go over here. I just run the command. See, a key file will be generated with the name like cube user. Okay. See, cube user key file is generated. This is a personalized key. If there is another one user, right, I will just create a cube user one dot key. Okay, that's fine. Then I need to create a certificate signing. My main aim is to, I need to create a key and then a certificate, right, for that user. Okay, so I need to create a certificate signing request using the key whichever I created in the step one. Okay, this is the command OpenSSL request. Um, output, I mean the key file which I have created from this tab, and then output is the certificate signing request. Okay, what is the CSR? Okay, I am if I need access, right? Say for example, I am a cube user. Okay, I need access to this Kubernetes cluster, so I am requesting you, okay, in the form of a certificate. Please certify my request. So that is the certificate signing request. Okay, and then with the subjects, this CN is the common name. This is the username. For instance, cube user will be the new user added for our demo purpose. This user, imagine this username is cube user. Okay, cube user. This is the organization, like you can live like it's kind of a group. Okay, you can put like a dev group or anything, and then multiple groups we can add it. Okay, just go here, just copy it. So next is the certificate signing request. Okay, I'll just put it. See, a certificate signing request is generated. Okay, then I need to this signing request will be authenticated by the certificate key file and the certificate file. Okay, the Kubernetes certificate file, I need to authenticate this certificate signing request, and then I need to issue the certificate. It's like issuing the ID card. Okay, so I am going to issue as an admin or a HR, I am going to issue the ID card or the certificate with this key. This is the ID card. You can imagine like kubeuser.cert, right? So, okay, so here I am just stamping my request using this command. Okay, now this will be the ID card for that user, cube user CRT. Okay, cube user CRT. You can verify this in a OpenSSL. Okay, you can decode the SSL certificate. You can just decode and review the components over here. Just go here and then cat. See, this is the certificate I have stamped in using a key file. So this certificate will be given to a user who require access to this cluster, right? I'll just decode this one, what the certificate is there, so you guys can understand. See here, common name. How do I get this common name? See, I'm just putting the common name over here, right? And then organization, the rest of the thing, you just leave it now. It's just 2 years validity is there. Okay. So my certificate is a valid certificate. See, these are all self-signed certificates. My certificate is a valid certificate. Okay, it's created. Okay, so okay, now a user has been created over here. Okay, kubectl config get users. Okay, okay. Now I need to add an entry. Okay, now I have only the CRT file generated. Only I have the CRT file. I mean the ID card generated, right? So what I need to do, I need to go first day when I go to my office. I need to go to the admin and then register in the first entry, right? So that I will from here afterwards, from today, I will be getting access to log into the, I mean, entering the company, right? So I need to add an entry, add a user, right, for the cluster, right? So that is this command. Okay, it's nothing but setting the credentials, I mean creating the user, you can imagine. Okay, see, if you can see here, clients, I am going to create the user cube user. Okay, with client certificate, which with the certificate which ID card which I have got from the previous thing, and then the key file which I have generated in the first step, right? Okay, okay. See, user is there. Now I have added a user. Okay, so if I put like kubectl config get users, ignore this user. This is the user we have added it. Okay, kubectl cube user. So I have stamped a entry, or maybe like in a different way. This user is being created. Correct. This user is being created. Let me take another one. Uh, Diagram for this one. So this user is being created. Okay, fine. Now I need to set, I need to put the entry in the kubectl. Okay, kubectl is nothing but, again I'm telling you, I am assume that you have a basic concept of a kube config. If you don't have, please refer my other videos. I will be posting a lot of videos about explaining about the kube config. Okay, so right now I'm just going to set the context. Okay, set context. Okay, before that, kubectl config get context. Okay. Okay, so this is the only context available, the default context. Okay, context is nothing but mapping a username with the key in the kubectl file. Okay, so right now just blindly execute this command. So I'm just going to okay. So this command need to be put over here. Cluster name is this one. I need to put this one. Okay. So user I have created. Okay. Now what I'm trying to do is set context for the Kubernetes cluster. So I just copy this command. I just explain you what I was trying to enter over here. Okay. So what I'm trying, if I put like a kubectl get context, see I have added a new context over here, right? Kube user is kube user hyphen Kubernetes with this user. Okay, kube user whichever I have created, right? So I have added an entry in the kube config, and this has the credentials of the new user. For instance, there is a kube user 1, 2, and 3. No, lot of context you can set it. Okay, so again another one thing, the star is the current user. This is activated currently, and this is an admin user. And for instance, this is an admin user. Okay, cluster will be the same, right? You need to have access to the same cluster, but the user will be different over here. Okay, that is the only thing you need to take care. Okay, right now I need to, since this star is in the admin user, I need to jump into this user. Okay, before that, okay, before that, okay, we are in this stage. Okay, we have created the user. Now I am going to give this user permission for the default namespace. Okay, so in the default namespace, I will give this user a name, namely the cube user, for listing the pods and for instance, listing the pods and the deployments. Okay, for that, since it's a namespace scoped, right? I need to create a role first, right? Role first and bind this role to this user. That is the role binding. I'll show you. Okay, in a single file, you can accomplish this task. Okay. Okay, before that, I'll just log in through this user and then let you know. It will show, it will throw the authorization error. Okay, so I just jump into this user kubectl config use context. Okay, see, this is the new user I have created, right? Now, see, I have just created the user only. I have not given any permission, right? Only authentication I have given for this user. So she can log in. Okay, but she can't list any pods. Correct. In the namespace default, for instance, -n default. See what it's telling? Error from the server. Forbidden. Pods is forbidden. User cannot list resources. Cannot list the resources in the pod because I'm just attempting to list resources in this default namespace. For instance, imagine my default is a project namespace, right? So I need to create a role and give this guy, user one, the permission to list the pods. Okay. For that reason, I am going to assign permission. Okay. By creating a role. Okay. Get context. Now in order to assign permission, I need to jump into an admin user, right? Kubectl config use context. context name. Okay. Now I have a role YAML file. See, this is the binding I'll show you. So if you see here, my step is I'm going to create a role for leaving this, for assigning this girl list and get and list permission to the pods in the default namespace. Okay. Imagine. So here, okay, I just put it over here. Okay. Just to explain you guys a bit more in-depth detail. So my next step is I need to create a role. Okay. So this step, see my mouse pointed, this is the role one. Okay. This is the role one. What I am doing over here, kind is role. Okay. And then I am giving a name for this role. Okay. API groups. Okay. API groups. API groups are nothing but like what level, what there are multiple API groups. You can just, for now, you can just put it like a blank. No, it will include all the API groups. Fine. And resources. Okay. There are a lot of resources inside the Kubernetes cluster. How can you get that resources over here? kubectl API resources -o void. Okay, see, lot of resources here. I can just grab for a pod. Okay, I need to view only the pod resources, right? Pod resources. Okay, so resources are pods and services. Lot of resources are there, right? You can refer this command. Okay, exactly. I am going to allow the girl for uh, this resource for get list and watch, only list and watch only. Okay, and also deployments also I'm going to get list and watch only. Okay, so what is the API group are nothing but these groups, right? Don't need to worry about how many groups are there. Just put a empty thing, it will include all the groups. Okay, but main thing is like a resource verbs. Okay, this is the role. What you are going to do with these resources, I am going to get list and watch. Okay, and resources, pods and services. Okay, so this is one rule I am writing, and then this is another rule. So what I'm what I am giving this girl is I am authorizing this girl to get list and watch pods and services, and get list and watch deployments in namespace default. You got it right. So I'm just assigning the permission for that girl. Okay. So that is the role. Okay. The role is done over here. What is, and then the role binding. I am just inserting in the same file over here. And then this will be the role binding. Okay. Simply but assigning assigning this role to the user which already we have created. Here I am going to use a cube user only, not user one, cube user. I am going to assign it. Okay. So if you see here, this is the subjects. Okay, and then this is the role. So first is the main role. I need to create this role, and then I need to put a role binding and then bind the user with the role. Okay, this is the binding. Okay, this is the binding. So let us deep dive into the code. So role.yaml. Okay, so here I'll just put a cube user because I've created a user named cube user. And okay, just get list permission only, not create permission. Okay, I'll just show you. Kubectl apply -i role.yaml. Okay, fine. Then kubectl get context. Okay, sorry, get context config kubectl config. Okay, kubectl config get context. Now I will jump into this user, I mean the normal user, and then try to list the pods. Before we have got an error, right? So the config use context. Okay, I'm going to use this context. See, okay, right now I'm going to list the pods in the default namespace. Before I got an authorization error, right? Zoom. See, I can able to list the, I mean, no error is there, right? I'm able to list the pods over here. I mean, listing the pods in the sense like some something is happening over here. Okay, I logged in. I can able to list something without any error, right? So, but if I try to create or run a pod, right, it will throw a authorization error for me because I have given the permission only for um, get and list, right? Not create, right? So here, if I try to run a pod like test pod hyphen image equal to nginx hyphen default, what it's doing? See, user cube user cannot create pods in the API groups in the namespace default because I have given a list permission. Now, what I'll do is I'll quickly jump into the other user and then give the create permission. Okay. So here I'm in this role. I'm going to create. I am going to allow for a verbs. Okay, verbs are nothing but the permission. Create, and delete also I will mention. Okay, just to show you guys the demo. Okay, create and delete permission for the user. Kubectl apply from role.yaml. Okay, now I'll jump into the normal user. Okay, see here. Now I'll try to create the pod. See, oops, the pod is being created, right? So kubectl get pods is there, right? Okay, see here, one test pod is running. I can able to delete pod also because I have given the delete access. Correct. Delete pod, test pod. Oops, you got it right. So this is the main thing you need to understand. This is a role and a role binding concept. The role, another one important thing is role and role binding or namespace scoped over here. Okay, namespace scoped. See here, namespace because this girl needs access to the. Wait a minute, I'll just show here. So what we have done is we have created a user for this girl and then authorization and for getting and listing the pods over here and then the role binding. Okay, so instance this girl wants to access the PVC. I mean the cluster. There are different types of resources, right? Like a pods and deployment for a namespace, and then cluster-wide resources like a volumes, right? You can assign a volume permissions to volume permission or the storage class permission for this girl using the cluster role binding because it's a cluster-wide access, right? Same thing. You will create a cluster role and then bind it with the cluster role binding. Okay, so that is the main thing you need to understand over here. If I list the pods over here, sorry, if I list the physical volumes, see, physical volumes is the persistent volume is not allowed. Okay, it's a cannot list the because this user cannot list the cluster scope resources, right? Because volumes are a cluster scope one. So let us assume, let us give this girl the permission to the cluster wide permission. Okay, first I'll jump over here and then I'll just copy the command from here. I just already have here RBAC cluster wide access. I have the PVC cluster role binding. Just copy over here cluster role. Okay, cluster role dot YAML. Okay, cluster role here. Cube user is fine. Okay, so here I'm just giving a persistent volume claims and the persistent volume. See, these are all the cluster scope resources over here. Okay, cluster scope because in Kubernetes there is a concept like a namespace flow scope and cluster scope. Here it's a cluster scope resource. Okay, so the same steps. Okay, I'm binding this. See, first I'm creating a cluster role instead of role. I'm just creating a cluster role because it's a cluster scope. Here I am not mentioning any namespace. Same permission verbs are same, but persistent volumes I'm getting here as resources. Okay, and then I am binding this cluster role to this user, okay, to this cube user. Okay, cube layer cluster role. Oops, then I jump into my uh, cube user Kubernetes. Okay, kubectl get pv. Okay, just kubectl config parent context. Okay, cube user Kubernetes is there. It's not allowing. Okay, persistent volume cannot list. Okay, cannot list is a persistent volume can. Let me check my one time my cluster rule. Okay, persistent volume, claim list. Okay, fine. The default namespace. Okay, get PV in. Okay. Okay, let me check that one. Let me jump into the. It's a kind of a troubleshooting. Let us do this one. Let us jump into this session. Okay, kubectl config get users. Okay, cube user. Okay, cube user we have created, right? So cube user, I will just assign it to the cluster. Okay, cluster role, cube user. Okay, so this is like DevOps cluster role binding is fine. Persistent volumes, persistent volume claims, it's fine. Okay, configured. Okay, fine. Then I'll jump into the other user. Okay, default. Okay, so the persistent volumes. Okay, let us check the persistent volume. Okay, so persistent volume claims is forbidden. Cube user cannot list the resources Kubernetes volume claims in API in namespace default. Okay, okay, okay. Let us check the cluster role. Yeah. Persistent volume claims over here. Yeah, guys, I just found out the issue. So we are trying to create the cluster role over here, right? So this name should be given over here because we are mapping that name over here, right? The role, whatever we create, right? We need to map over here. So that is the reason we just give map it over here. I was just using another row and then give control apply dot b. Okay, I just jump into the other one. I need to jump through the admin. Okay. Okay. So right now, again, I'll jump into the normal user. Okay. Now, kubectl get pv hyphen in default. See, I can able to list the physical volumes, right? Cluster wide scope, right? So that is the overall idea of this one. Let me again explain you what we have done over here. It's a quick thing. Okay, so right now, what we done is we just created the user, using the steps mentioned over here, right? All these things, and then we are giving the authorization, that is the role and the role binding we are giving to this user for listing the pods and the deployments. Okay, that is the first we have done. Then what we did is we gave this user the cluster wide resources. So cluster wide resources needs to be assigned through the cluster role and the cluster role binding. Okay, that's what we did in the step 2. Okay, so the cluster wide scope will be like a cluster role and then binding with the cluster role, binding with the username. Okay, so the same thing you can use for a service account. Service account is nothing but it's a kind of a user. Okay, it's not like a normal user. For instance, if you want to deploy some bots with the service account, right, it will be using the same concept over here. Instead, service account will be like a kubectl create service account name. Okay, so I'll be sharing you the piece of code over there. But again, no, it's like the same thing. It will, you can do the binding everything over here. If you see here. Um, like a service account, everything role and role binding will be the same over here. Only thing you will be adding this step, like creating a service account will be like straightforward, and then again it will have almost all the role and the role binding. Okay, same concept over here. So thank you guys, please subscribe my channel if you have not, and I am planning to post a lot of videos, and enjoy time. Cheers, bye.